Yeah, so, wow. If you're in London, come and see Richard Blake in Hammersmith for his breathwork sessions. They're quite incredible. I'm now in London, just walking out of Hammersmith Tube there, and I'm about to see a rather interesting chap called Richard Blake. He is an expert in conscious connected breathwork. Richard,
Hello.
nice to meet you. So we've had this conversation online. I have a bit of a background, but those that are watching don't have any idea of who you are and where you've come from. So it'd be lovely to, first off, just ask, I know you've been on a journey to get to this stage, and I wonder if you can break that down into a pocket-sized piece of description, just to tell us, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I guess I started in the corporate world. I was a chartered surveyor. I got very much into nutrition and lifting weights, and my dream was to be in men's health. I got into men's health as a fitness model, so had that big transformation, abs and pecs and things like that. And during that whole time, I was really suffering with anxiety and depression, and I thought that once I was in men's health, then I would be happy, of course. But then, of course, it got worse after I was in men's health. I was even more unhappy, as on top of that I developed an eating disorder, binge eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
Because of that extreme dieting, because of other things happening in my life. My dad died around that time. I broke up with a girlfriend, and it just, all these things just overwhelmed me, and food came along kind of to rescue me in some way. I really like that Marianne Faithfull quote where she says, "Heroin saved my life." It's the idea that it's not heroin isn't inherently bad. Actually, addictions come along to help and support people. Thankfully, I am now clear of the food addiction, but it's still something I'm very conscious of. So around that time, I attempted suicide, and I had a really I was very lucky that my girlfriend at that time, ex-girlfriend now, kind of walked in on the attempt and then took me off to get some help, and I started seeing a therapist and started healing, basically. Started with therapy, did processes like the Hoffman process, the path of love, and then got into more meditation, moved to study nutrition at Westminster University, then bought a CrossFit gym in LA, and then came back here, and since then I've been traveling a little bit, studying. I've worked in an ashram in India, I've studied energy healing in Cambodia, plant medicines in Peru, and now what I've really found to be the most profound and most effective healing modality or spiritual technology is this breathwork, conscious connected breathwork, which is what I now do.
And I'm very excited about doing it. But what a story. And it's sad when I think about it that yours is not uncommon. I've been in around this world a little bit longer than you, and as a consequence met a fair few people that unfortunately have a similar backstory. And indeed, one of the tribe members, a lovely guy called Tom, has just set up his business that will be focused around, he's calling it Fellas with Feelings, because it's all about the opening up the subject, especially with men nowadays. We are significantly affected by anxiety, depression, stress, and it has become all too common. That Marianne Faithfull, I've not heard that quote before, but that's really interesting. And I can understand where that's coming from, as I assume Russell Brand would probably understand the same thing, wouldn't he? That we sometimes have these crutches to fall on, don't we, to deal with whatever that shit is that we have to deal with at the time. I was going to ask, actually, and I didn't want to interrupt you at the time, but where do you think, when you had that idea initially of wanting to be in men's health, was it just purely that early 20-year-old psychology of wanting to put yourself out there, or was it something else? Where did that come from, wanting to be in men's health? And
I think growing up, I was influenced a lot by my mum and female friends and things, and then around that time, looks were so important, and I would have female friends, and they would idolize guys with good bodies and things like that, and I wasn't particularly attractive during my teenage years, and I just really I wanted girls to like me basically, and I think also with superheroes these days, I wanted to be a superhero. I wanted to look like Iron Man, well, not Iron Man, but Thor or Goku from Dragon Ball Z. So it was kind of idolizing those people.
It's funny that, isn't it? Because there has been in the last 10, 20 years, both positive and negative effects of this association with health. And unfortunately, as is typical with us humans, it's led to obsession, and obsession with the human body and what we're meant to look like. Men's health has a lot of value. Unfortunately, they put a lot of, I think, focus on image, although they will perhaps profess that they don't necessarily do that, but most of their magazine covers are of a scantily clad man to draw the viewer in. That's the nature of marketing, isn't it? The idea of men's health in itself was brilliant, wasn't it? Because it's getting people that were used to a certain culture that maybe did play a bit of sport, but spent much more time after sport down the pub drinking pints of beer. It got those people interested in a little bit more to do with their health, didn't it? So the whole idea is brilliant, but what you've just described, I'd say, is probably typical of most men, isn't it? I know that when I was in my 20s, I was in what I call my peacock phase. You're displaying your feathers because you think, but by displaying them, that's what attracts a mate. It's so silly, isn't it? Because actually, at that time, you're doing all these things. I would go raving, and I'd do a whole host of things. And most of the time, I'm sure I was only really ever thinking about women. And but none of the stuff that I did back then, I'm sure, was ever attractive to a woman, because it's not what women want. But we almost have to go through that phase. It seems that is a part of the phase that we have to go through as men. Anyway, that's really interesting. I love that story. You've got there already then a holistic approach, and I know that you want to further develop it, which is what I love about you already, that like anybody that's on the right path, that the path doesn't end. Your journey never ends. It's about accumulating and continually accumulating that knowledge, and hopefully knowing that some of the knowledge that you have, when you impart it on other people, it will have an impact. And already, though, you've figured that one in particular, to do with the breath work, has a noticeable, probably immediate effect, I'm guessing. I don't know, since I've not experienced what you're about to teach me or what you're about to put me through. But what I do know is that breath work in general, just by doing the Wim Hof method, after our conversation, I then looked up conscious breathing, by the way, just to get an understanding of what it really was. And I do employ various different breathing techniques in my life. All of them have a benefit. Just simply doing it in the morning has an amazing effect. But could you tell me, therefore, specifically what we're about to do here? As in, I know I'm going to be laying down, but what else is happening?
Yeah, so I'm going to be coaching you through this breath technique. It's not too dissimilar from a plant medicine ceremony, in that we'll be entering an altered state of consciousness brought about by this breath work. And this technique, a lot of breath comes from the East, pranayama, yoga, those kinds of things. This is a Western breath technique that came from Stanislav Grof and Leonard Orr. And Stan Grof was a psychiatrist who was doing a lot of research in the 60s in California with psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, so mainly with LSD. Then of course that got made illegal, and he he developed this technique that gave similar effects to LSD. He called it holotropic breathwork. And so this is kind of a derivative, a filter down of holotropic breathwork. So what psychedelic psychotherapy does, and I think things like this and flotation tanks is down-regulates the default mode network of the brain, and that's the part of the brain that's constantly checking, is everything okay, am I safe, I need to be up here to make sure there's no tigers in the bushes, my boss isn't going to shout at me, and it can let you get into Freud would call it the subconscious. I think we're getting more into the body. I really think the body keeps the score. That's a quote from an incredible book by Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and it's all about how trauma is not in the mind. Trauma is in the nervous system. And what Stanislav Grof says, he was trained in psychoanalysis, so Freudian psychotherapy. His clients could give PhDs in their problems. They could explain, I have the Oedipus complex and my father did this to me and this links here. I have attachment disorder. This is Bowlby's theory. They could explain their problems like geniuses, but the problems didn't change. The symptoms didn't go away. But with the breath work, they did.
Interesting. I'm with you totally as well with the with where it comes from, and luckily there's so much more research and talk about it now, isn't there? That the mind isn't here, the mind is everywhere, and the fact that we've got neurons that we're now aware of in the heart and in probably most of our organs are indicators that there's so much more going on with these things other than their known task. Very interesting.
Well, I didn't really answer your question. Practically what we'll be doing is you'll be lying down, you'll be doing a breath technique that has 4 key points. The first one is it's a mouth breath, so the mouth's really wide open.
Yep.
The second is that it is a diaphragmatic breath, so using as much capacity of the lungs as possible. Normally we use about 25%. The third is it's a connected breath. So normally we pause after the inhale and the exhale, and humans are the only animals that pause between the inhale and the exhale. So what we do in this breath work is we breathe in a connected manner with no gaps between the inhale and the exhale. And then lastly is the exhale is just a soft let go. This is normally the hardest one for Londoners, is just to let go, because we all have these control patterns, so it's really just a soft. Whilst you're doing that breath technique, I'll be doing something called acupressure, which is kind of a cross between acupuncture and massage. I'll be going around various points in the body, pressing on them, seeing if they kind of come up, if they're sensitive, and maybe saying an affirmation. Different parts of the body relate to different things. This is the most common one, just at the top of the stomach. When I press there, normally it's pretty painful for people because that's where we feel control, and that's where us control freaks cling on so much. Another one up here is about anger. A lot of people have anger and tense shoulders and it's not expressed. The right side is directed to other people. It's about unexpressed anger to other people. The left side is about anger relating to ourselves. It's really about self-forgiveness. And of course everyone's different, but these are some common areas that are particularly sore that probably don't feel sore to you right now, but once you start the breath, you'll notice these aches and pains and these sensitivities.
Mine does now, because I'm now concentrating on it on the left side, actually. Okay, that's really interesting.
I gave a presentation yesterday in my master's in psychotherapy about men and women and psychotherapy, and the question, do men need the same therapy as women? Psychotherapy in this form, the talking form, originated with Freud. Freud only worked with women because men didn't have problems. Laughable,
I didn't
of
realise
course. Yeah, and the men didn't have problems. Women had hysteria, which originated in the womb, an area that basically men didn't have. And then shell shock came along with First World War, and people realised, oh, men actually might have some psychological problems. And the story continues. But still, we sit head to head, ready to battle with our problems, and expect men to show vulnerability when we have evolved not to show vulnerability, because in our tribal ways, you show weakness or vulnerability. If you're a part of any rugby team or football team, you'll know that vulnerability in those scenarios gets you chopped down the pecking order. So talk therapy is not necessarily great for men. John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, talks about the hormonal changes that happen when men and women talk about their problems. For women, it's great. They should talk about their problems. For men, when we talk about our problems or complain, we raise estrogen, which is not good. We want to keep testosterone high. So when we're upset, we should go do something that raises testosterone, something we're good at, basically. And this is why...
Sorry, is that why we're then quite often when we're upset, we have this inbuilt reaction to hit something? I mean, I don't hit people, but quite often I have hit an inanimate object because I want to see Either the impact on my own body, the pain, or I
Mm.
want to see the impact of what it is that I've broken.
I think you're probably raising testosterone there. I'm a big advocate of punching pillows.
Yeah.
Processes like the Hoffman process, Path of Love, they really get you to express emotions, and people express them in different ways, from shouting, from punching, from dancing, but moving it out of the body, because just keeping it in the mind causes so many problems.
Yeah.
And what I was going to go on to say was, psychotherapy is great for women. I'm studying a master's in psychotherapy. I think it's great. It's helped me massively. But I'm massively in the minority. I know you can't really be massive in the minority, but I'm in the minority in all these circles of psychotherapy, of energy healing. So many more women are drawn to these areas than men. And I think one of the main reasons is because it's so much harder for men to be able to go and speak. And with psychotherapy, you often hear psychotherapists will say, oh, you know, someone's husband came to see me and they just said, oh, I'm just here because my wife says I've got to see a therapist or she'll leave me. And of course, it worked miraculously for the woman, but for the man, it's not going to work. And that's why I think you're seeing so many more men drawn to Wim Hof, to breathwork, to men's groups, to plant medicines and things like that, where you don't have to share, you don't have to speak, you don't have to show vulnerability. You can do this process in a group, but you're not showing so much vulnerability.
That's really interesting. I've never thought about it like that, because I studied clinical hypnotherapy because my wife did, and I did it then for a year. And as lo and behold, obviously the people that I did see were mostly female. That is interesting. I'd not thought about it from that perspective before. Because of course we all assume that women are much more intuitive with their emotions, etc., much more empathetic. We know that. But I'd always assumed that what works for them would work for men. But that's a really, really interesting, valid point. And when I think about how I've reacted in certain situations or felt, in fact, I did a video on this about what I feel is my lack of emotion, my inability to sometimes feel it in any given situation, and how when I was young, I would regularly put Blade Runner, the original, on, but just the final scene when Roy Batty dies, if you know the movie, I don't know if you do, and there's a you know, his monologue at the end, which I remembered and learnt because I was just forwarding and rewinding, just watching this because I wanted to feel the emotion. I wanted to feel sad. So my parents would come in and see me doing this, thinking, "Uh-oh, there's something wrong with him." But really, it was just simply I wanted to cry because I couldn't find any other reason to cry or feel emotion. I didn't understand what was going on, but now I do. That I needed to tap into that, and I found that even in quite highly emotional moments, at that time, when most other people would probably be in tears, it's all switched off. It's as if my brain is saying, no, you can't be emotional at this stage. But then maybe later on, if I'm watching a movie, because I am a bit of a movie geek, then all of a sudden I'll get this kind of flooding of emotion that I was used to having, because I would always be a little bit emotional, even on any kind of movie that involves a father-son relationship or anything like that. I'm usually close to tears. And I don't mind showing the tears, but it's almost as if, because that event happened before, that emotion was held in there, wherever it might be, and then only the movie was the catalyst for it pouring out. And I still can't explain it. But
well, I'm totally the same. That scene in Good Will Hunting, where it's not your fault.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. That to me, it's just
yeah.
And I need that kind of vessel to feel through. I feel through that other person.
Right.
That triggers me. Then I can feel for myself. And I think a lot of it is because I learned it wasn't safe to cry as a kid. And another thing, when it relates to trauma, fight, flight, or freeze, we stop breathing to run away from that tiger. And we file away those emotions for a later date.
Right.
Whereas when we have the breath work, basically what we're doing is opening up that filing cabinet, having a little look around, seeing if something wants to pop up in a safe space that we can process it. And the breath work allows you to process it, and you'll often see people clearing through the nervous system. If you've ever, you know about ayahuasca, people clear with la purga. La purga means the purge, vomit. You have vomitivos before to practice clearing. So that's one way of clearing. In the breath work, people clear sometimes in vomiting, very rarely, usually it's yawning or coughing or burping or farting, but it's the nervous system letting go of something.
Wow. Very interesting. Well, at the very least, I know my 5-year-old son will be most amused if it is in the form of a fart. I love that connection, by the way, between you and I. I'm sure there must be loads of other men out there that do the same. We can't be the only ones.
No, I heard a girl in the gym today talking about A Star Is Born and how she watched it and she liked it, but her husband was just crying her eyes out, his eyes at it, and apparently he's a robot normally, but then he watches a film and it all comes out. Something about that for us.
Love it. I should add, actually, so Richard, I can say this to you guys, is very obviously to me a biohacker. And it's probably, that's going to be a term I would imagine that will probably disappear, or people will get annoyed with, because it doesn't necessarily mean what it really means, and it's not really an apt description. It's really just if you want to find a way of just having a healthier lifestyle, of finding ways to find more energy, of there's so many different facets to biohacking, but I can see already, I mean, we're sitting on a grounding mat. My left foot and right ankle are on the grounding mat. I know that there are a few other things I've spotted. Now, yes, you did show me your, what did you call the net?
The EMF canopy.
EMF canopy, yeah. And there's a few other things, aren't there?
I've got the Aura Ring.
Oh, so what's this?
The Aura Ring is a tracker, so self-quantification, so it takes biomarkers like movement, steps, body temperature, respiratory rate, HRV, heart rate, and it tracks your sleep.
All in a ring?
All in the ring, yeah. This is what all the biohackers have. If you go to the Health Optimization Summit.
Does it?
My girlfriend has one as well.
That's amazing.
And the reason people love that in the biohacking world is because you can put it on airplane mode, so there's no non-native EMS flying around apart from when you sync it up.
Huh. That is very clever.
That's a good one. Then I have my blue light blocking glasses, so these block about 40% of blue light and also help with the flicker from the screens that causes programmed cell death whenever you look at a screen. Irreparable programmed cell death in the eyes, yes. Well, we have the Juve infrared light. Yeah, so that is a full panel of infrared light, and basically what that does is shine it on your face, makes you produce more collagen. Shine it on your testicles, makes you produce more testosterone. I have a shoulder injury, it helps with inflammation in muscular injuries as well. Also mitochondrial health, it helps stimulate the mitochondria, giving you more energy there. And it's a bit like why Jack Kruse and Matt Maruka say you must never miss another sunrise if you want to live optimally, because those first few hours of sunrise are much more heavily there's much more infrared light during that time, so it's kind of simulating a sunrise.
So should we just crack on? Right. Brilliant.
Okay, Dave, you can now close the mouth and go back to your regular nasal breathing pattern. Nothing for you to do now, but just be present with the body, present with yourself. Very slow, Dave. Take it slow, buddy.
Wow.
What do you notice in the body right now?
It felt really heavy at first. When I went to sit up, it was like there was a magnet drawing me to the mat. It actually felt nice. There's a lovely tingling sensation.
There's a lot of energy going down towards your feet. How are your feet doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too sure whether I'd be able to stand up.
No, don't try.
Yeah, it feels good. My head feels warm. And kind of fuzzy. The rest of the body has a nice kind of energetic tingling.
There was a lot of movement, a lot of energy around your shoulders, going down into your arms. Shoulders normally relate to anger towards other people, to ourselves, and forgiveness of other people and ourselves.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of involuntary movement, almost these weird kind of shakes that I just couldn't control. I remember the first one, and I thought it had an involuntary need to control it, and then I sort of almost said to myself, let go, and the rest of them just became involuntary sort of impulse.
Well, I think that's clearing. I think that's the nervous system
It felt like that.
letting go of little traumas and big traumas potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice spaced out feeling afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can sort of feel that.
Yeah, that's chi. That's energy moving around the body. That's electricity.
Yeah.
Flowing freely now.
Yeah. I like it. Slowly beginning to alter, but you can still feel it.
Feel that altered state of consciousness.
Yeah, a moment ago I was quite happy just staring into space.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I was aware that we were talking, but I didn't feel the need to talk, if you know what I mean. It was just, it I would have been quite happy, I think, probably just staring for ages. In fact, I probably did, didn't I? That was odd, by the way. After reading Patrick McEwen's book, The Oxygen Advantage, I concentrate mostly on breathing through my nose. Even doing the Wim Hof, I mostly do nasal breathing. So for me, that was really uncomfortable. Just the feeling of a dry mouth.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're dribbling. And it really wasn't a nice feeling at all, because I suppose I
nasal breathe, I take my mouth to sleep, I take my mouth to do CrossFit.
Oh, you do? Brilliant.
I do loads of nasal breathing, but this is mainly for volume, and I do Wim Hof both through my nose and through my mouth, and I get so much more volume in through the mouth. So for this, the main reason for mouth breathing is just volume. Obviously there's a lot of, parasympathetic, sympathetic activation that you don't get from the mouth breathing. We've got an air filter here, you don't need to worry about filtered air as well here. I wouldn't encourage this on the tube, this kind of breathing. This breath is not something to do all the time. It's not like, now you must breathe like this. It's kind of like taking the breath to the gym. You don't go to the gym all day, but maybe you go to the gym once a day. And ideally now you would integrate this into a daily practice of 10 to 15 minutes, and with then one longer 30 to 40-minute session per week.
Yeah, so, wow. If you're in London, come and see Richard Blake in Hammersmith for his breathwork sessions. They're quite incredible. So I'm feeling still a bit spaced now, in a nice way. You'll notice the involuntary shaking. Obviously when people go through these breathwork sessions with Richard, he said that a whole host of things can manifest, which is really, it's almost like a purge, you know, you're getting rid of things that need to be gotten rid of. So yeah, let's talk about Richard. Richard is the perfect person you want as a healer, as a breathworker in his case. Although, as you know from the video, he's practiced in a number of different disciplines. He's going to continue learning. He's going to continue his journey and gather gather information, gather knowledge. But he listens. He's very patient. You can tell he has a lot of knowledge and intelligence. But unlike me, I get somewhat excited about certain topics. He's able to simmer that, and he's a very warm-hearted chap. So there we are. Evolution of Dave signing off. Thank you for watching. This was certainly one of the most interesting days of my life. Thank you.